Alright, hello. So, in light of the recent mag changes, we're gonna do our own rework with blackjack and hookers. So, to start us off, let's get rid of Mag's passive. Because Mag's passive, right now, is this little shitty vacuum pulse when you bullet jump that takes items with you. And this is honestly a little bit insulting because the community has been asking for a universal vacuum on all the frames, or at the very least all the companions, for about a year and a half. So that's just shitty. Let's get rid of that. Instead, Mag would have the passive. Mag doubles the cap of overshields for herself and allies, meaning that Mag could get significantly more overshields than regular, and any ally that is with her could also get significantly more overshields than normal, which is pretty useful with the rest of these changes that I'm going to propose. Secondly, right now, if you were to pull an enemy, we'll head to the abilities screen. If you were to pull an enemy, you have a drop chance of 25% that killed enemy will drop energy. So unfortunately, that is not useful. The damage is cool. This is low. Like, this is for low level. Like, you can kill some stuff at low levels, but low level enemies, like dropping energy, like this ability ends up being a thing that, like, this extra stuff here doesn't really matter because this stops killing enemies pretty fucking quickly. So the change that would be made here for pull is that instead of it being on enemy death, you would have this drop chance be just whenever you pull the enemy, you have that drop chance. And then you would put a kind of 10-second cooldown on individual enemies that energy wouldn't be able to come out with, like, wouldn't be able to come out of them. Along with that, you would move this down to a 15% drop chance, maybe 10%, to make it a little less consistent without some added power strength, but would still be very useful at kind of all level ranges. Would be really nice. Everything else about this ability, totally fine. Totally cool. It would make it more of a support style. And you may notice a trend there with the support style. Moving on to Magnetize. So, Magnetize is a good ability, but it's clunky. It's a little clunky, and especially for earlier players, it's really not going to be moddable for them in a really big and good way. So, the things to make Magnetize more usable would be that you make it castable on the ground, which means that Mag can use it as a proper, like, setup defensive thing for her, and it means that she doesn't have to cast it right next to nullifiers and shit, where it will get dispelled instantaneously, and she can actually make good use of it and be more strategic with Magnetize, which is very helpful. And also, the initial size at max rank, and at the lower ranks as well, would just be increased by 1 meter, because it's pitifully small as it is. Let's just take a look at how incredibly small it is just with, like, basic stuff here. And this is a starter Warframe, so you can expect people will have basic stuff and be trying to use this ability. Let's just spawn this Arid Lancer in. You can see that this bubble size is pretty pitiful. Like, this is not really... There's not a lot that's going to be going on here. And obviously you can kill this, like, little level 20 because it's a max rank ability that does damage. But this bubble is pretty pitiful in size. So increasing it by 1 meter, I feel like we give it a nice little bump to make it very, very solid. Along with that, other changes would be that magnetized travel time shots would no longer harm Mag. So once a shot would be magnetized, Mag won't just get instantly evaporated by it, because this is supposed to be a kind of defensive ability. This is mostly because just of bombards. Bombards can just pretty much instantly evaporate any squishy frame, so let's not have Mag just be instantly evaporated by her own ability that she's trying to use to defend herself. Until, at least, unless we're gonna get, like, bombard and napalm changes so that we can shoot down the rockets and stuff, because we have no counterplay for that as of right now. And then the only other thing added to Magnetize is that enemies that are stripped of their defenses, which means shields or armor, would be pulled with greater force and would be like they wouldn't be able to run out of the magnetized bubble. Because right now, fast enemies, like for example the fusion MOAs, they can just run out of the magnetize as long as they're not the main target of it, which kind of sucks. Them being stripped of their armor and stuff would be great if they were forced to stay inside the magnetized bubble. Now moving on to the biggest change that I want to make is Polarize, moving Polarize towards more of a support skill. Because right now, the like functionality of the way that you cast this and stuff is all great. Like this is cool, like the range, all that stuff, fantastic. But what Polarize actually does, it doesn't scale. And B, there's not like a good reason to use it. And the reason that it got nerfed initially was because of its ability to just wipe maps. So obviously, that wasn't good for the game. And changing it to wipe maps again would be stupid. So instead, we need to make it wipe maps even less, to make it so that it can actually be an ability that can kind of achieve something and be very good and be helpful to the team and be good at low levels. So remove all of the damage from this ability. Enemies no longer deal damage around them and explode and shit. Get rid of all that shit. It does, like, the damage is too low. The only thing that it keeps in terms of, like, damaging stuff is that it will create that shrapnel still for Magnetize and such. That's totally reasonable. But the base, like, explosion damage, drop it all. Give it 70% base defense removal, which means it would remove 70% of armor or 70% of shields. And then add 145% power strength, which there's a reasonable amount of ways to mod for. You would remove 100% of shields and armor, which obviously scales very well. And that would be a thing that you would want. Very good. Enemy shields would not recharge for 6 seconds. Seems pretty reasonable. Kind of evening out the effect on armor versus the effect on shields. Pretty good there. A very nice debuff. Just generally very good. But on top of that, to make Mag more of like an early game support choice, where if you're choosing between Excal, Volt, and Mag would also be good casting for like reasonable damage in the beginning, but also a support Warframe that supports with shields as opposed to like direct healing, which is a thing we don't have. So, you take what Shield Transference does now and allow her to give overshields to herself and her allies. And this is where her passive becomes like really good, and you can give your teammates lots and lots of shields, which is really good, and no like other Warframe really does that unaugmented, and it would be very useful. But because of that, because we're kind of just like we're pillaging what Shield Transference does, because it's a very good effect, that's fantastic, you would take a new Polarize Augment, which this could be a lot of things, and I'm not necessarily saying it has to be this, but allies in range of the enemies would be granted 50% of stripped armor from the enemies for 30 seconds, and then that would be affected by duration and strength, respectively. Or reverse. Strength would affect the stripped armor percentage that they get, and duration would affect the time, of course. That's my idea for another augment. Could totally be something else. But putting this on Mags 3 innately would make her way more useful in the beginning for newer players, because Mag is for newer players in general. Not to say she can't be played by higher level players, of course, but that's what's up. Then finally, we come to Mag's fourth ability. So Mag's fourth ability is Crush. And this ability is slow. Slow. It's slow and it's bad. It doesn't do a lot of damage. Even with the augment, it's not really worth using. It's just not great. If one enemy is immune to crowd control and you're doing this, dead. And enemies can be immune to crowd control in a variety of ways. There's just too much that this ability just doesn't do for you. Like, there's an enemy in a nullifier bubble on top of that hill, and you do this, dead. There's a ancient healer around, dead. That Lancer shot you. Mag is not that hard to kill as it stands right now, and Crush is just too slow, too clunky of an ability, and it's just not that great in general. So we've got to scrap the whole thing. For a new ability, which I scrapped together a name, called it Solenoid Pulse. So the basics of this ability would be Mag would essentially fire a big cylinder forward That would be a very long targeted cylinder that would magnetize all enemies to the floor, stunning them for, like, let's say 9 seconds. So it would be kind of a reverse Rhino Stomp, because pinning them to the ground as opposed to putting them into the air, but directed in a, like, singular direction, like kind of like in a hallway pattern as opposed to a huge radius circle, to make it a little bit different. Along with that, enemies that would be, let's say, stripped of their defenses would take damage like they would take damage from Frost casting Snow Globe near them, which means they would take finisher damage up to 50% of their max health, which is pretty solid. In terms of being able to do some damage, that's reasonable while not being overpowered, and it requires setup with you having stripped their armor or whatnot already with your 3. A power set like that would basically make it so that Mag can do just more. Like, you can just do more with that. Like, it would make it so that Mag is a choice for support in the beginning, because we don't really have one. Like, in the beginning, like, the soonest, like, support Warframe you can definitely go get is Trinity, which is a ways away for a new player that wants to be a support frame. And this would not remove Mag's ability to do damage with her Magnetize, and giving her some damage that's reliable on her 4, making it like a good crowd control ability that she can cast fast. Having Polarize scale well, but also being good in the beginning and being very supportive. Her 1 being useful all the way through the game, with its, like, full breadth of ability. I just feel like that would make Mag a whole lot better. And it's hard to... I don't have, like, visuals for it, obviously, because it's hard to describe, I feel. But hopefully I got kind of the point across with what I would change with Mag, and, like, explain why it would be better. Because a lot of the changes are for players that are earlier on. Like, veteran players, it's like, well, why do I need to pull energy out of enemies? I have Xeneric. It's like, well, the player that's MR1 doesn't have Xeneric. They're not rolling with Xeneric. They don't have the luxury of Xeneric. They need a way to generate energy. It'd be really awesome to have a frame that can generate energy that's not Trinity for the party. Magnetize is a good ability, but it's clunky. It's like, well, it's not clunky for me. I have overextended and stretch, and I'm fucking MR16. I've been playing this game long enough to, like, be really good and never get shot. It's like, okay, well, that MR2, he might need a little help. The starter Warframes maybe need to be a little bit, like, more noob friendly, because they're starter Warframes. So maybe make it a little less clunky for him. That goes with the larger size as well initially. Polarize just needs to be a good scaling move, like, for the end game, for the experienced players. But also, in the early game, like, a player right now, I feel, that's just starting out, hits this, then it hits the enemies, and at the basic level of Polarize, they don't know what the hell it did. Like, what did that do to the enemies? It says 400 damage on the ability, but what did I actually do? Like, it needs to do something, like, immediate, where you can tell, and you look up and you go, hey, my shield turned purple, and I've got a bigger number. That's a thing. I'm a new player. Bigger number is good. Like, that's a thing that everyone can just immediately recognize. I want a bigger number by my health bar. Absolutely. And then your allies all also have bigger numbers, and you go, oh, that's what that ability does. It's way, like, it's a very noob-friendly way to approach that power. And then for the 4, obviously, if you were to shoot a 4 that does that at an enemy, you would immediately recognize what it's doing. It's very obvious. And I think the starters need to be obvious in what they do, and the way Mag is right now is, like, very not beginner-friendly, in my opinion. But I think these changes would overall go to make Mag just more friendly to everyone in general. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what your feedback is on this. I have my notes for this entire rework down in the description, so go check that out if you would like kind of more specific type stuff. And give me feedback on this, because I think it would be some really good changes to Mag to make her a little more unique and give her, like, a kind of a special place in the game, and give me a reason to use this fantastic skin. I'll see you guys tomorrow.